This is, for real, one of the most important objects that I own, period. Hey everyone, it's Alice the Tutor Witch, here to make learning more magical and fun. So today I'm doing a little review of the 5 tarot and oracle decks that I own. I'll describe each one, tell you some pros and cons, and also share whether or not I think that deck is good for a beginner. And make sure to stick around till the end because I'm going to share my favorite deck of all that I think everyone should use, if they want. By the way, I am a tutor, of course, so if you'd like to book a session with me, check out the link in the description down below. It's thetutorwitch.com. This is a newer channel, so I would really appreciate it if you could give me a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave me a comment down below, share this video. All that stuff really, really would help me out. Thank you very much. So without further ado, let's dive into the decks. So the first tarot deck I actually bought for myself was the Wooden Tarot by Skullgarden on Etsy, aka Andrew Swartz. Here's the back of the cards. Now my mom had introduced me to tarot years before using the classic Rider-Waite deck, and I talk a bit about that in my other video. But for my own deck, I wanted something that spoke to me a bit more, something nature-themed that fit with my spiritual practice. And I really love this one. It's probably my favorite tarot deck ever. It renames the suits, so wands become stones, pentacles become bones, swords become plumes, and cups become blooms. And if you're not really familiar with those suits, I talk more about those in my other video as well. And the imagery on these cards has a lot of feathers, flowers, bones, horns, little mushrooms, and various creatures with a bit of an interesting fantastical spin on them. Like we have the 9 of plumes here with these owls that I love. I really like that this deck shows different aspects of nature and life. Sometimes it's cute and beautiful, but sometimes it's kind of creepy or gross or weird. But that's what something like tarot does. It's a complex system that attempts to describe all these different parts of life. For example, we have the 7 of blooms here with these kind of like eyeballs in the flower, or Judgment, this bird with these kind of cool black trumpet mushrooms for a head. Now, I do have to say that this deck isn't particularly beginner friendly, so it was kind of hard to learn tarot with this one. Unlike Rider-Waite or some of the decks with more traditional imagery, some of these cards can seem a little more kind of abstract or obtuse to interpret. For example, we have the 3 of bones here, which, that's just 3 bones. It might be a little hard to kind of know what that means at first. This deck also doesn't come with an explanatory booklet or anything, so if you don't know the meanings of the cards really well, you'll have to look those up elsewhere, which is easy enough to do. My favorite cards from this deck would have to be the Hanged Man. We've got this adorable little bat hanging here. And my absolute favorite would have to be the Sun, which is a card that I just generally love anyway, but this particular version, I love sunflowers, I love foxes, and it's a little kind of creepy and weird, but really cool, this card. Alright, so moving on here, next we have the classic Mystic Faerie Tarot deck. It's by Linda Ravenscroft and Barbara Moore. Ever since I was a child, I've really loved fairy folklore and this style of art, so this deck really spoke to me as well. The art is cute and very whimsical. For example, we've got the 2 of Swords here, and the Knave of Wands, which is the same as a page. And the imagery is a little more reminiscent of the traditional Rider-Waite symbolism, definitely than the Wooden Tarot we just looked at. It does come with a little booklet, and I like the explanations in here. It's cohesive and approachable to learn. This booklet doesn't mention reversals though, so if you want to use those, you'll have to find information about them elsewhere. Again, I mentioned those in my other video if you aren't familiar with them. But the idea with this deck is that you're traveling through the fairies' garden and learning different lessons along the way. Probably my favorite thing about this deck is that it really emphasizes the story aspect of tarot. Each of the 4 suits has a certain set of little fairy characters that go through the journey of the suit card by card. And I think that really helped me to better understand and remember the meaning of each card. There are pros and cons with that. The interpretations can seem a little bit limited sometimes, but ultimately this stuff is always open-ended and there's no book long enough to fit every possible interpretation of any tarot card. Anyway, I do think this is a great deck for tarot newcomers and beginners. My favorite cards from this deck, I really like Death. She's this very cool kind of punk rock fairy chick. And I especially love the moon in this deck, is so cool. Alright, next up is the Crow Tarot by M.J. Cullinane. This was actually a Secret Santa gift from a friend a couple years ago, so if you're watching this, thanks, and caw, caw, caw! Because I started getting more into tarot around the same time I became really obsessed with corvids, with crows and ravens, which was kind of just me becoming a witch. Anyway, this is another great tarot deck. Obviously, it features crows rather than humanoids, but the imagery is mostly based on traditional symbols, and I think it's not too hard to understand the cards and stories visually. For example, we have the Five of Cups here, a sad crow, and the Seven of Cups with all the choices here, right? And the artwork is interesting with this almost like quilt-like kind of collage style. The creator's love for crows obviously really comes through, and I think some of the cards are really memorable, which has, of course, helped me in my tarot learning journey. And on some of these cards, you can also see the astrological correspondences that I mentioned in my last video, like the ram for Aries on the Emperor, and we have the symbol for Saturn up there on the King of Swords. The deck also does come with a booklet explaining the meanings of each card, upright and reversed, so overall I would say this is a good deck for beginners as well. I only really have one complaint with this deck, which is that the description of some of the reversals are just really negative. I mean, tarot is supposed to try to capture all of the aspects of life, so we do want to look at the good as well as the bad and not try to sugarcoat anything. But some of these are just kind of really disheartening. When the Two of Swords is reversed, the problem with indecision is heightened. You are unable to find any clarity due to an overload of information, thus leaving you more confused and unable to figure out what is most relevant. I mean, whoever needs to hear that? So that's my only issue here. But I do have a couple favorite cards from this deck as well. I really like the Two of Wands and the Eight of Pentacles. All right, that was the 3 tarot decks. Next up, we have 2 oracle decks that I'll introduce. And if you're not entirely sure about the difference between tarot and oracle cards, again, check out that other video. Now I'm going to start with Mollymauk's Oracle of the Moon deck by Critical Role. If you don't know about Critical Role, it's a hugely popular Dungeons & Dragons show on YouTube and Twitch, and also just one of my favorite things ever. Mollymauk Tea Leaf was a really amazing character in their second campaign, so that is the inspiration behind this deck. It is relatively new and unsurprisingly very fantasy-oriented, as we'll see. Now, if you are familiar with Dungeons & Dragons or Critical Role, you'll probably be able to pick out lots of little details about the characters and concepts in these cards that could enrich your interpretations and connect to a lot of other associations. I mean, as a witch and a Critical Role fan, I think these are just so perfect. But even if you don't know anything about D&D or you've never heard of Critical Role, these can still be great cards to use. It's still a beautiful deck with rich concepts that I think are relatable for anyone. I did find that the 3-card past, present, future spread works really well with these in particular, though it may have been that I was getting to know the deck at a time when that was a really relevant spread for me, so I don't know, do your thing. But yeah, the art style is really detailed and gorgeous too. Here's the Moon and Mirror card that is the namesake of the deck. Now there are a couple really cool things about these cards. First of all, as you can see, they have a built-in reversal. So each card has different artwork for the upright and the reversed positions. Each card has a name or a concept that it represents, and then you have the 2 different sides of that coin. It really concretizes the idea of reversals in a cool way, and the duality of the concepts is just so interesting. For example, you have hunger and sacrifice, bond and betrayer, history and dream, and joy and chaos. Another dope feature of these is that there are quite a few blank cards included in every deck so that you can make your own as well. This is so appropriate for a D&D inspired deck since it's all about creativity and coming up with your own characters and stories. I haven't gotten around to making my own cards yet, but it's definitely on my list of things I want to do. I want to make some cards based on D&D campaigns that I'm in, which would be so fun and really deeply meaningful. So that creative invitation from these cards is just a great idea. There is a little book that comes with the deck, and it's very cute and fun and gives you more information on the cards. But unlike a lot of these booklets, there's not a ton of text. It only gives you a few keywords for each card. There's not a ton of explanation, but I like that there are some keywords and images that are kind of evocative, and then it leaves the rest up to your interpretation. As I said in my last video, that's really important. And as I also said in my last video, I think oracle cards are great for beginners, so if this deck speaks to you, I'd say go for it. It's been hard choosing my favorite cards from these decks, but here I would have to go with the Crone and the Maiden, Growth and Rot, and Home and Traveler. And finally, we have my very favorite deck of all, the Hedgewitch Botanical Oracle by Siolo Thompson. I wish I knew exactly how to pronounce her name. But this is, for real, one of the most important objects that I own, period. The cards are all based on plants, which are beautiful, common, and have various uses for medicinal and other purposes. And the oracle properties are very carefully derived from and linked to those plants. So we have soothe for chamomile, ephemeral for a daylily, for example. The art style is so beautiful and unique. Some areas are filled in with colors and others not. And the deck comes with this absolutely incredible book that has so much cool information about each plant. Medicinal, folkloric, botanical, cultural, spiritual, symbolic, and so on. It really speaks to me and is just everything I love in one little book. The creator is so wise, and there are so many awesome lessons to learn in here just from each individual card. But I also love the way these cards work together in spreads. There's really nice overlap and cohesion between the concepts. The oracle properties are a variety of verbs and nouns and some adjectives. And I'll admit that at first this grammatical inconsistency irked me a tiny bit. But upon using the deck, I found that those combinations are so interesting and thought-provoking. So for example, you might get enjoy ephemeral adventure altogether. Nurture sacred dream. That's pretty good. Now, hedge witchery itself is a concept that I'll talk more about in future videos, but for now, suffice it to say that this deck is really meaningful to me. If you like plants and you're interested, I would 1000% recommend getting this one. And of course, as an oracle deck, especially one with an excellent explanatory book, it's great for beginners too. Once again, it was so hard picking my favorite cards, but I settled on Dandelion for humility, Huckleberry for resourcefulness, and Lady's Mantle for magic, of course. Alright y'all, thanks for joining me. Remember to check out my other videos and my website, thetutorwitch.com, to schedule a one-on-one session with me. Now, please comment down below and let me know if you own any of these decks, which ones you do have at home, if you're planning on getting any new ones in the near future. If you do own any of these decks, please comment below and share your thoughts. I'd be really curious to hear your perspective. If there's a different deck that you really love, then please share it down below as well. Again, please like, subscribe, and share this video. I really appreciate your help in getting my channel started up. But for now, happy learning, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, it's Alice the Tutor Witch here to make more my favorite cards from this deck.